Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this discussion. You're talking about the opportunity that India offers and the opportunity Indian companies offer as they change the paradigm of doing business. And it's great to have a panel like this with us on that. Mr. Mangli, let me start off with you. As the head of NASSCOM, this is budget season. Everybody's talking about policy. From your standpoint, of course, the budget itself has little impact, save a few tweaks and a few acts. But really, what are you watching out for this year?
Well, from the perspective of this industry, we do recognize that by the budgeting process is the annual process. One of the things that's very important to people in business who are making investments is a stability of policy. Now, one of the issues in the forefront is what is the budget position going to be on issues like STPI and SEZ and so on. And because of the some churn that's been created lately, we believe that it would be important to this industry to for the STPI extensions to be in consideration, and for the government to take a position that yes, it does help the industry, it does continue to attract investments and to keep people there. So that's one thing that's important. Second, one of the priorities that NASSCOM is adopting is to recognize that if you look to the challenges and the opportunities of the future, we want to be very nurturing and supportive of the role of small companies because they tend to be engines of innovation, of new creation, new software products. So a priority in our minds from a budgetary point of view is to make the changes in both in policy and specifically include them in the budget to ensure that small companies, startups, innovators have an ability to use the provisions of the laws relating to STPI, SEZ, and so on. And the problem right now is that because of the way this phenomenon has grown, most of the SEZ facilities have come out in the big major metros. That's not necessarily where startups and small companies happen to be located. So people know that starting out and when you are small, it is a very difficult job. It's hard to get off the ground. You have additional uncertainties because of unknown markets and the viability of your products. A lot of it is people are going on a dream. To cause them also then to say, well, if you want to avail of these benefits, you need to go to these mega facilities in the major metro cities.
Costs as
it's a cost, barrier, difficulty. So I would say two things, STPI extensions, and two, something innovative that actually extends these benefits to the new startups, SMEs, where they are.
Keshav, let me get you in. You're one of the biggest BPO players in the country. From a budget standpoint, is there anything that you're looking at? Because, one could argue that while you have specifics, which are, niche specifics as far as the budget process is concerned, there are a lot of other issues that concern you. Education, skill development, infrastructure, a lot of issues that you've been grappling with, for instance.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Obviously NASSCOM is the best position to comment on the budget provisions, but we'd be quite happy if the sunset clause for the STPI is merged with the DTCI dates. That's one. And having said that, being a company that employs with such large scale, we've noticed that a lot of the people that we employ actually comes in from the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 locations. We believe that the future of this model is going to be taking work to the people as opposed to taking people to the work. And I, for one, would really like to see the government focus a lot of their fiscal, initiatives program on helping us go deep into the hinterland of India and build new centers in these locations, because the cost of education, the cost of moving people from one profession to a completely different profession like BPO, and training and development is going to be huge, and individual companies alone cannot manage them. So I think that the IT and the BPO incentives for the future need to be directed towards companies who do this.
But isn't that a problem that you will face at the center level, state level rather than the center level? Does the center have jurisdiction on how to incentivize you to go into interior India?
Well, from our perspective, we're actually seeing a lot of states taking a lot of interest in actually moving us towards these locations, because the reality is there are good people there. There are people who are grateful for these jobs, and there are people who are looking for jobs which are sustainable in the long term. That's one. And let's face it, at the end of it all, there is a vote bank there.
The other issue, Mr. Manglik, is one that suddenly has come up as a little bit of a sticky point, and that's taxation on the on-site business. That's something that has been brewing for some time. It could have a detrimental impact on a lot of the IT companies. What sense are you getting from the government? Are they likely to go ahead with that, or is there some rethink?
Well, you're meaning international on-site. No, we think it's a very serious matter, and when there is uncertainty and when there is such large variance and what I would call adventurism in the interpretation of the legal intent, it really sullies the environment for investment. And, as it is, there have been certain very visible cases where there have been highly unusual interpretations of tax laws retroactively applied. We think it is detrimental to business, and we think it is not the right approach to take. So we think that there needs to be some clarity, and for this to be applied with some understanding of the intent. The problem that we are facing in the tax area is not just on this international thing, but if you look at the tax demands that are placed within the local areas where our facilities are located, they tend to be highly arbitrary. And then the only recourse you have is to go into years and years of litigation. And again, that's not providing a streamlined, conducive environment to business. It actually impedes business.
Mr. Manglik, everybody is looking at the big budgets. Peter alluded to it. The fact is that there are big budgets around e-governance, digitization of various departments, etc. And there is a timeline. How do you see that panning out, and how important can India be from a market point of view going forward?
NASSCOM did a assessment perspective 2020, which concluded that by the year 2020, and that's only 9 years from now, we believe there's a very high probability scenario that we would be, the 75 would be going to 175 in exports and another 50 from the India domestic market. So 225 billion relative to where we are today. And India is a third of that. And the vibrancy of that market, the hotbed for innovation it'll provide is just immense. It doesn't mean it's necessarily an easy market. And you raised the issue of the budget. Frank talked about it. So I think the government spending around core projects, I think it's a very good engine, particularly in e-governance. Once it's taken to the remote areas and the connectivity, I think that will provide a platform. Mr. Nilekani was here. He's one of our own from our industry. He's now driving, to use your term, Peter, a very audacious, in the best use of the term, project that we believe will change the social and political dynamics of our nation and provide a huge enabling platform. Now, if there are platforms of that nature, which have embedded in them the investments for connectivity, the platform, then it will be easier for other entrepreneurs to put on top of those platforms applications that may serve niches out there. But India will be a very important part of it in size in the IT market, in terms of its importance as a testbed for innovations, and also for developing the new paradigms that then get imported or exported elsewhere.
And let's explore that, because Peter, what will happen perhaps is that if you are looking at new innovations around low-cost points in a very diverse market, you can pretty much own other markets. You've seen that in telecom, where an Indian company has gone and become a big player in Africa, for instance. You have Africa, Middle East, parts of South Asia, parts of Eastern Europe. So, I mean, could the new solutions come from here in that context?
Absolutely. Well, let's take something like cloud. So we all believe that cloud is going to be a very disruptive and very significant point. And one of the large promises of cloud is to be able to offer services at a much lower price point. In order for us to deliver on the demands and the promise of the Indian market, we're going to have to do that through cloud-like vehicles. And in developing it here first and developing it at scale, because you have to get cloud only works at scale. We will really be one of the first places to be have driven our price points down. That is going to be it's not so much the world will be beating the path to that door, not so much us having to go sell that. That is very important and is essential to the next these breakthrough revolutions that really are poised to again rework our technology landscape.
Frank, I want to, in fact, get you in here because when I asked you whether cloud was a fad, you said it's going to be the foundation, and I want to pick up on that point. Is it good for India that we are finally discovering our own market at a time when we've got so many ways of making it cheaper and faster, where platforms are emerging, cloud is emerging?
Well, we certainly agree with that view. It is the foundation for the next 25 years of the industry. And again, the reason is market reach at low price points. You think about, what drives the IT market. It's the solutions. It's the applications. It's not the technology, but it's what people do with them. And if you look at developers now, they're already voting with their feet. 80% of the new applications developed in 2011 will be available through cloud delivery. By 2014, almost a third of customer spending on applications will be through the cloud. So cloud is essential. I will add this bit of caution, though, because I think India's great potential, we have to be careful because India still has a lot of work to do, let's say, in cloud. Right now, over 70% of all the IT spending on cloud is done in the United States. About 15 to 16% in Western Europe. A very small percentage in India right now. And when you consider the population, it should be much higher. China, as we all know, the government, it's a different government situation. So, for better or worse, they're able to drive very quickly these investments. So they're investing heavily in cloud infrastructure. And by 2013, China will eclipse Japan as the number 2 spending market on IT. So I think we've all agreed, India has phenomenal advantages, phenomenal potential, but it's not like we can sit still and it'll just happen. I think there's a lot of work to do to build this new foundation.
Absolutely, and I think the potential of India can be only realized if innovation and thought leadership is going to drive that. And I'll let you have the last word, Keshav. What is a possibility, if we get it right, I mean, both in terms of generating jobs, in creating the infrastructural backbone, and perhaps making governance far more transparent? I mean, is that what we are looking at if things go right?
Actually, I'm a big bull in this area. So the first thing is, whereas traditionally, if you look at the outsourcing market, people always have said that IT has always exceeded in terms of the numbers as opposed to BPO. On the contrary, in India, this year, it's BPO which is actually exceeded in terms of the numbers against IT. It's actually the spend is higher by 0.1% here. And whereas globally, governments also are stressed and have been therefore looking at new solutions for BPO. In India, it's very interesting because we are playing catch up. We're actually now beginning to spend in a number of new areas which are actually driving demand for BPO and at the same time IT as well. So from my perspective, I think that with consumption taking off in a big way, let's face it, inflation is at an all-time high. People are not consuming onions any less anymore. People are just consuming more. They're hungry for goods, they're hungry for services, they're hungry for products, and that's happening in India. So the ability to service that demand and therefore, keep generating dollars or rupees or whatever it is very high. And as the government begins to also help India catch up with the world markets, that's another paradigm. So I actually think there's huge impact and the potential for that to percolate all the way down to the tier 2, the tier 3 locations and really live on that promise of incredible India.
Well, on that very, very positive note, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and helping us crystal ball gaze into the possibilities and the opportunities of the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.